For years. That's how long I waited for my parents to need something from me. For years of keeping my mouth shut while everyone thought I just disappeared like some ungrateful kid who got what he deserved. Last Thursday, Franklin finally called. My father, who changed the locks while I was at work and left my clothes in garbage bags by the recycling bins, actually dialed my number. I let it ring 5 times before answering. I'm Edwin, 26 now, 22 when this started. My cousin Jeremy moved in when I was 16 because his mom Priscilla passed from cancer. She was Franklin's younger sister, and I think he carried guilt about not helping her more. Jeremy was 14 and needed a home. I shared my room with him for 2 years without complaining. Then he turned 16 and my parents converted the basement into a full suite for him. Private bathroom, mini fridge, new furniture. When I asked why Jeremy got this renovation while I stayed in my small room, Franklin said Jeremy had been through enough and I should be grateful I had both parents. That phrase answered everything. Why did Jeremy get a car at 17 when I saved 3 years for mine? He's been through enough. Why did Jeremy skip chores while I mowed lawns every Saturday? Been through enough. My mom Suzanne introduced us at gatherings glowing about Jeremy's internship and potential. Then remembered I existed and added that Edwin still works at the warehouse. By 20, I stopped asking. Jeremy was the son they wished they had. I was the kid they were stuck with. After community college, I moved home because Franklin said it made financial sense. I was not freeloading. I paid for my food, gas, phone, everything. Worked 6 days weekly saving for an apartment. Sundays I drove 40 minutes to visit Grandma Eva because nobody else bothered. Not Franklin, not Suzanne, not Jeremy. Just me helping with groceries, fixing things, actually talking to her. She was the only family member who saw me as human. The night they kicked me out was a Wednesday in October. I came home from a double shift and all my stuff was in garbage bags in the garage. Franklin waited by the door saying Jeremy needed space for a home office. And since I wasn't contributing to the household, I should find my own place. I asked what he meant since I paid for everything myself. He said that wasn't the same as rent. I asked why Jeremy wasn't paying rent. Franklin said Jeremy was family and had been through enough. I asked to come inside and pack properly, grab my documents. He said Jeremy was asleep and I could return Saturday. He closed the door. I heard the deadbolt. I loaded my car and drove to a motel. Saturday, I showed up for my birth certificate, passport, grandfather's watch. Locks were changed. I texted Suzanne and she said coordinate with Jeremy because it was his space now. Jeremy left me on read 6 hours, then sent a thumbs up. When I got inside, Franklin timed me. 15 minutes. My grandfather's watch was missing. Franklin said he didn't know what I was talking about. 3 days later, Suzanne posted on Facebook about starting a new chapter, finally having peace, letting go of negativity. She tagged Jeremy thanking him for bringing light into their lives. 80 comments congratulating her. Nobody asked where I was. Could have exposed them publicly, but I remembered what Grandma Eva once told me. Don't fight when you're weak. Build yourself up first. So I did. Got an apartment with a coworker. Kept visiting Grandma Eva every Sunday. Helped her organize her affairs when health issues started. I was there when she needed someone trustworthy, when she made decisions about her estate, about the house she owns outright, the house she let Franklin and Suzanne live in rent-free for 12 years because family helps family, the house my parents tell everyone is basically theirs. Last Thursday, Franklin called sounding warm and friendly. Said he wanted to reconnect. Suzanne missed me. Asked me to Sunday dinner because Grandma Eva was moving to assisted living and there were family matters to discuss. I said yes and I smiled for the first time in 4 years. They have no idea what Grandma Eva and I discussed. They have no idea what she decided about her property. Sunday dinner is in 2 days and I've waited 4 years for this moment. I'll update after. All right. I need everyone to understand the architecture of what just happened here because Franklin built a masterpiece of hypocrisy and I genuinely don't think he even realizes it. This man is living rent-free in his mother's house for 12 years, contributing nothing to property taxes, insurance, repairs, literally just existing like a barnacle on a yacht. And then has the audacity to kick out his biological son for not paying rent in a house Franklin doesn't even own? The cognitive dissonance required to form that sentence and say it out loud without your brain just shutting down in self-defense is staggering. And Suzanne posting about letting go of negativity 3 days after putting her son's clothes next to the recycling, not even regular trash, recycling like Edwin was something to be processed and repurposed. 80 comments congratulating her and nobody asked where her actual child went. That's not a family. That's a PR firm with a dining room. But Grandma Eva was watching everything. Every Sunday visit. Every time Franklin didn't show up. Every time Edwin fixed something around her house while her own son couldn't be bothered. Old people see everything. They just choose when to act on it. And she chose to wait. She chose to build a case file made of kindness and receipts. Edwin thinks he played the long game? Grandma Eva invented it. I'm genuinely nervous for Sunday dinner and I already know what's coming. Update 1. Sunday dinner happened and I need to write this down while it's fresh because my hands are still shaking, but for completely different reasons now. First, some context from comments. A lot of you asked why I didn't expose them publicly 4 years ago. Because I had nothing. I was 22 with garbage bags in my car and no leverage. Franklin and Suzanne controlled the family narrative. What was I going to do? Comment on Suzanne's Facebook post saying, actually, they threw me out. I'd look like the bitter problem child they painted me as. No, I waited. I built. And now I have something they cannot spin. I pulled up to Grandma Eva's house, which they've treated as their own for over a decade, and walked through the door like nothing happened. Suzanne hugged me saying how much she missed me, how good I looked. Franklin shook my hand talking about how maturity suited me. Jeremy was already at the table scrolling his phone and barely acknowledged me. Some things don't change. The first hour was painful small talk. What was I doing these days? Where was I living? Was I seeing anyone? I gave surface answers because I wanted them to get to the point first. They lasted 90 minutes before Franklin cleared his throat and brought up Grandma Eva. She was moving into assisted living next month, he explained. Time to discuss what happens with the house. He said they'd been thinking about it, and since they'd maintained the property for years, put so much work into upkeep, it only made sense that they take ownership. Keep it in the family. Suzanne nodded along. Jeremy finally put down his phone. I asked if Franklin had discussed this plan with Grandma Eva directly. He got irritated saying he'd mentioned it, but she was getting confused lately and probably didn't understand the details. I asked what exactly she said when he brought it up. He snapped that this was a family matter and he didn't appreciate being interrogated at his own dinner table. Suzanne jumped in saying this was exactly why they invited me, to handle things together as a family. As a family, like they didn't throw me out with the recycling. Then Jeremy spoke up and this is where things got interesting. He said he'd been thinking about it too, and since Franklin and Suzanne weren't getting any younger, maybe it made sense to put the house in his name eventually for estate planning purposes. He actually said that. Estate planning. Like he was some financial advisor instead of the guy who sent me a thumbs up emoji while I begged to collect. Franklin's face shifted. Suzanne looked between them and I realized something I hadn't considered before. Jeremy wasn't just the golden child replacement. Jeremy had his own agenda. He'd been playing the long game, too, just a different one than mine. Franklin told Jeremy they could discuss that later privately. Jeremy pushed back saying he was part of this family, too, and had a right to be included in decisions. Franklin repeated that they would discuss it later. Suzanne tried changing the subject back to me, asking what I thought about the whole situation. I told them I'd actually been spending a lot of time with Grandma Eva over the past 4 years, every Sunday, helping her with things around the house, driving her to appointments, organizing her paperwork. Franklin's expression changed. Suzanne stopped smiling. I said Grandma Eva had asked me specifically to help her with some important decisions since nobody else seemed to have time for her. Franklin asked what kind of decisions. I said she'd been worried about what would happen to her house and her things. She wanted to make sure everything was handled properly before she moved. He asked if I was saying she already made arrangements. I said I was saying she trusted me enough to involve me in her planning. Jeremy asked point blank what that meant. Did she leave me the house or something? I told him I didn't say that. I said I helped her with paperwork and decisions. What she decided was her business to share when she wanted to share it. Franklin stood up. He said he needed to see whatever documents I was talking about. He said as her son, he had a right to know what was happening with her estate. I told him if he wanted to know what Grandma Eva decided, he could ask her himself. She was moving to Sunrise Assisted Living on the 15th, room 203. Maybe he could visit her for the first time in 2 years. Suzanne started crying. She said I was being cruel, that I didn't understand the stress they'd been under, that maintaining this house wasn't easy. I asked her what exactly they'd maintained since Grandma Eva paid property taxes, insurance, and most repairs herself until she asked me to start helping her 18 months ago. Franklin demanded to know if I'd been poisoning his mother against him. I said I didn't poison anyone. I just showed up every Sunday for 4 years while they were busy enjoying their new chapter free of negativity. I stood up and thanked them for dinner. I said I had something Grandma Eva asked me to deliver, but I'd left it in my car and I'd bring it by Thursday morning instead. Franklin grabbed my arm asking what was in the car. I pulled away and said he'd find out Thursday. Jeremy called after me asking if this was about the way they kicked me out, if I was doing this for revenge. I turned and told him it wasn't revenge. It was just family helping family. He should understand that concept since he'd benefited from it his whole life. I drove home and sat in my parking lot for an hour just breathing. 4 years of waiting and I'm finally here. Thursday, I'm delivering the envelope. I still haven't told them what's inside, but I will tell you all. Grandma Eva signed the house over to me 8 months ago. Full transfer, legal and done. My parents are about to find out they've been living in my house rent-free and their new chapter is about to have a very different ending than they planned. Thursday update coming. Jeremy saying estate planning purposes at that dinner table is genuinely one of the funniest things I've ever heard in my life. This kid watched Franklin and Suzanne run their whole replacement son experiment, took detailed notes, and then tried to pull the same move on them at Sunday dinner. He's not a golden child, he's a franchise. He studied the game while playing in it. Franklin created a monster and then acted shocked when the monster developed an appetite. And Franklin's face when Edwin dropped that room 203, maybe you could visit for the first time in 2 years. Line, I need that energy framed. Edwin didn't raise his voice, didn't get emotional, just stated facts like he was reading a weather report. Sunny skies, 72 degrees. You abandoned your mother, light breeze from the northeast. That's what 4 years of preparation looks like. He walked into that dinner with the nuclear codes already entered and just let them argue about who gets to sit in the captain's chair of a ship that already sank. Franklin screaming about being interrogated at his own dinner table in a house he doesn't own is peak delusion. My man is cosplaying as a homeowner. He's been LARPing as a lord of the manor for 12 years and got mad when someone asked for the receipt. This is my dinner table. Sir, that is your mother's dinner table in your mother's house that you've contributed nothing to. You're not the man of the house, you're the longest-running house guest in history. Update 2. Thursday morning, I drove to the house at 6:45 a.m. Franklin leaves for work at 7:15 and I wanted to catch them both before they scattered. I parked on the street and walked up the driveway holding the envelope Grandma Eva and I had prepared months ago. Copy of the deed transfer, copy of the notarized documents, a letter from Grandma Eva explaining her decision in her own words. Franklin opened the door before I even knocked. He'd been watching from the window. Suzanne was behind him in her bathrobe. Neither of them looked like they'd slept. I held out the envelope and said Grandma Eva asked me to make sure they receive this. Franklin snatched it and tore it open right there in the doorway. I watched his face as he read. First confusion, then recognition, then something I'd been waiting 4 years to see. He looked up and asked what this was. I told him it was exactly what it looked like. Grandma Eva transferred ownership of the house to me 8 months ago. Everything was legal, notarized, filed with the county. He was holding a copy for his records. Suzanne grabbed the papers from him and started reading. She kept saying, No, this couldn't be right. Eva wouldn't do this. I told her Eva absolutely would and did. She made the decision herself after careful thought. I just helped with the paperwork. Franklin started yelling. He said I manipulated a confused old woman, that I took advantage of her declining mental state, that he would fight this in court and have it overturned. I told him Grandma Eva had a cognitive evaluation done 3 weeks before signing specifically to prevent that argument. She passed completely. The paperwork was airtight. His mother knew exactly what she was doing and why. He asked, "What? Why would she do this to him?" I said maybe he should ask her himself, but since he hadn't visited in 2 years, I could give him the summary. She watched him throw out her grandson with garbage bags. She watched him give her house to Jeremy piece by piece without asking. She watched him ignore her for years while I showed up every single Sunday. She decided her house should go to the family member who actually treated her like family. Suzanne started crying again, saying this was their home. They'd lived here for 12 years. Where were they supposed to go? I told her that was an excellent question. The same question I asked myself 4 years ago in a motel parking lot with my life in trash bags. Franklin grabbed my shirt. He said I wasn't going to get away with this, that he'd fight me with everything he had, that I was no son of his. I pulled back and told him he made that clear when he changed the locks. I wasn't his son, I was his landlord now, and I was giving them 60 days to vacate the property. I left the envelope with them and walked back to my car. Franklin followed me down the driveway yelling that I couldn't do this, that this was elder abuse, that he'd call the police. I told him to call whoever he wanted. The deed was in my name. The transfer was legal. His mother made a choice and he had to live with it. Then Jeremy came outside. He'd been listening from the stairs apparently. And here's where things got complicated in a way I didn't expect. Jeremy walked right past Franklin and stopped in front of me. He said he wanted to talk, not yell talk. I told him we had nothing to discuss. He said actually we did because Franklin and Suzanne had been lying to both of us for years and maybe we should compare notes. Franklin told Jeremy to get back inside. Jeremy ignored him. He said Franklin had been telling him for years that this house would eventually be his. That it was basically already promised, that Edwin was gone and out of the picture. Meanwhile, Franklin was apparently telling Grandma Eva that Jeremy was just a temporary guest and Franklin would always take care of her. Suzanne told Jeremy to stop talking. Jeremy kept going. He said Franklin had played them against each other for years, made Jeremy feel special so Jeremy would be grateful and compliant, made Edwin feel worthless so Edwin would leave and not complicate the inheritance. Franklin wanted the house for himself, not for any of his kids, biological or otherwise. Franklin told Jeremy to shut up. Jeremy said no. He was done being the grateful orphan who just accepted whatever scraps Franklin offered. He turned 24 this year. He had a job. He could see now that Franklin just wanted free labor and a tax deduction disguised as charity. I stood there watching this unfold. For years I'd hated Jeremy almost as much as my parents, but watching him finally see what I'd seen all along, watching him realize he was a tool, not a son, I felt something shift. I told Jeremy I didn't trust him. He said he understood that, but he wanted me to know he never asked to be the favorite. He never asked Franklin to kick me out. He just went along with it because Franklin told him I volunteered to leave, that I wanted to go, that I hated living with them. I asked if he really believed that. He said he was 18 and grieving and believed whatever made him feel less guilty. Franklin interrupted saying we were both ungrateful, that he took Jeremy in when nobody else would, that he raised me and gave me everything. I told him he gave me garbage bags and a 15-minute timer. Jeremy said he gave Jeremy a basement suite and a lifetime of guilt for simply existing. Suzanne went inside and slammed the door. Franklin looked between us and said, "Fine. If we wanted to be enemies of this family, then we could both deal with the consequences." He went inside and I heard multiple locks engage. Jeremy asked what I was going to do with the house. I said I hadn't decided yet. He asked if I was really going to make them homeless. I said they had 60 days to figure out their next chapter, just like they told me. He nodded and said, "Fair enough." Then he asked if he could have my number, not to team up or scheme, just to talk sometime because apparently we were both Franklin's discarded sons now. I gave him my number. I don't know why. Maybe because he was the first person in my family besides Grandma Eva to actually see the truth. I drove to work. Thursday was 2 days ago. Franklin has texted me 17 times demanding to negotiate. Suzanne sent a 3-paragraph message about forgiveness and family. I haven't responded to any of it, But something else happened. Jeremy texted me last night. He found my grandfather's watch. It was in Franklin's nightstand drawer. Part 4 coming soon. Franklin telling both boys the house was coming to them while telling Grandma Eva he'd take care of everything is genuinely sociopathic efficiency. This man was running 3 different lies simultaneously like he's managing a portfolio of deception. He diversified his manipulation. He had a pie chart of betrayal. Most people can barely keep one lie going. Franklin had a whole spreadsheet. And the tax deduction disguised as charity line from Jeremy? That kid just discovered in real time that he wasn't a son, he was a line item. His whole identity for the past 8 years was Franklin's receipt. That's genuinely devastating, and I actually feel for him now because being the favorite doesn't protect you. It just means you find out you were worthless later instead of sooner. But the grandfather's watch being in Franklin's nightstand this whole time after looking Edwin in the face and saying, "I don't know what you're talking about." That's not just lying, that's collecting. Franklin kept a trophy. He wanted something he could touch that reminded him he won. Every night for 4 years Franklin went to sleep knowing that watch was inches away from his head while his son wondered where it went. That's movie villain behavior. That's the kind of detail a screenwriter adds and then deletes because they think it's too on the nose. Except it's real. Final update. The 60 days are up today. I'm writing this from the house, my house. And I need to tell you everything that happened because it ended exactly how I spent 4 years imagining it would. After Jeremy texted me about finding my grandfather's watch, we met at a gas station parking lot near his work, neutral territory. He handed me the watch and said he found it while packing his own stuff. Franklin had kept it in his nightstand this whole time, probably planning to sell it or just enjoying that he'd taken one more thing from me. I put it on my wrist for the first time in 4 years. Jeremy told me Franklin and Suzanne were panicking. They'd spent 2 weeks calling lawyers trying to find a way to contest the transfer, but every attorney told them the same thing. Grandma Eva was mentally competent, the paperwork was perfect, and they had no legal standing. Franklin apparently threw a phone across the room after the 3rd consultation. They tried a different approach after that. Suzanne started posting on Facebook about how families should forgive and come together in difficult times. She didn't mention the house situation directly, but the comments were full of relatives asking what was going on. A few cousins reached out to me asking if everything was with Franklin and Suzanne. I didn't respond. Then Franklin showed up at my job. I work at a logistics company now, moved up from the warehouse to operations. He walked into the office during my lunch break and started demanding that we talk like adults. My manager asked if there was a problem. I told her this was my father and we had a personal matter to resolve. She gave us the break room for 10 minutes. Franklin sat across from me and tried a completely different approach than the yelling from before. He said he understood I was angry but that family was more important than property. He said Grandma Eva had been confused about the family dynamics, that she didn't understand he'd been caring for her all along, that I'd painted a false picture. He said if I transferred the house back to him he would forgive everything and we could start fresh. I asked him what exactly he would be forgiving me for. He said for taking advantage of a vulnerable elderly woman, for turning his own mother against him, for destroying his family over a misunderstanding from years ago. I told him the only misunderstanding was that he thought he could throw me away and face no consequences. I told him Grandma Eva saw exactly what he was, a man who treated his own son like garbage because a tragedy gave him an excuse to start over with a more grateful model. I told him he had 45 days left to find somewhere else to live and this conversation was over. He said I was making a huge mistake, that I'd regret this when I was older and realized family was all that mattered. I told him he was right about one thing, family was all that mattered. That's why Grandma Eva gave the house to the family member who actually showed up for her. He left my workplace and I finished my shift, but that wasn't the end. Day 55, Suzanne came to my apartment. She'd gotten my address from a cousin who I'd given it to for a birthday card situation months ago. She knocked on my door for 10 minutes before I opened it. She was crying before I even said anything. She told me she never wanted things to go this far, that kicking me out was Franklin's decision and she went along with it because she thought I'd come back after a few weeks and apologize and everything would go back to normal. She said she didn't realize Franklin had actually changed the locks until after it happened. She said she missed me every single day and this wasn't the family she wanted. I asked her why she posted on Facebook celebrating being free of me. She said Franklin made her write it, that he said it would help establish boundaries. I asked if Franklin also made her give Jeremy my bedroom, ignore my texts for 4 years and pretend I didn't exist at every family gathering. She didn't answer. I told her she had choices. She chose Franklin every time. She chose the narrative that made her look like a good person taking in a tragic orphan instead of a mother who threw away her own son. I told her I didn't hate her, but I also didn't have room for her in my life anymore. She'd made that clear 4 years ago. She asked if there was anything she could do to fix this. I said yes. Move out by day 60 and don't contact me again unless I reach out first. She left crying. I closed the door. Day 60 was yesterday. I drove to the house at dawn with the formal eviction notice I'd had prepared just in case they tried to stay, but when I pulled up there was a moving truck in the driveway. Jeremy was carrying boxes out. Franklin was sitting in his car staring at the steering wheel. Suzanne was standing on the lawn looking at the house like she was trying to memorize it. I parked and walked up the driveway. Franklin got out of his car and walked toward me. For a second I thought he might actually try to hit me. Instead he just stopped about 3 feet away and asked if I was happy now. I told him I wasn't happy, I was satisfied. There's a difference. Happy would mean I got my childhood back. Happy would mean I had parents who actually wanted me. Satisfied just meant the people who threw me away finally had to feel what it was like to be discarded. He told me I had turned into someone he didn't recognize. I told him he never knew me in the first place. He saw Jeremy as his second chance at a better son and I was just a rough draft he wanted to delete. Suzanne came over and begged one more time. She asked me to let them stay 1 more month just to find a proper place. They couldn't afford rent in this market on such short notice. I asked her if she remembered giving me 15 minutes to pack my life into garbage bags. I told her 60 days was generous. I told her they'd figure it out. The neighbors were watching. The Hendersons across the street, the Patels next door. Everyone who'd seen Suzanne's Facebook posts about her peaceful new chapter was now watching Franklin and Suzanne load a truck while their biological son stood in the driveway holding the deed to the house they'd treated as theirs. Jeremy finished loading his stuff and walked over to me. He asked what I was going to do with the place. I told him I hadn't decided yet. Maybe sell it, maybe rent it, maybe move in myself and actually build a life there. He said whatever I decided he was glad I won. He said he hoped I could let go of some of the anger now that it was over. I told him the anger kept me going for 4 years. I wasn't ready to let it go yet, but maybe someday. Franklin and Suzanne drove away. Jeremy left in his own car. I stood in the empty driveway of my house and finally took a breath. For years ago they put my life in garbage bags and told me I wasn't family. Now they're the ones packing boxes and finding out what it feels like to start over with nothing. They posted on Facebook that they were finally free of me, but I'm the one who's actually free now and they have to live with the consequences of treating me like trash. Grandma Eva called me last night from Sunrise. She asked if it was done. I told her it was. She said good. She said she was proud of me. She said some people don't learn unless they lose something. I'm going to visit her this Sunday just like every Sunday for the past 4 years. Some things don't change. You're watching Hidden Lies, where secrets don't stay buried. This story will make you question everything. Stay till the end.